The old house loomed before them. It stood like a skeletal giant, shrouded in an unnatural darkness that seemed to consume even the faintest glimmer of moonlight. The air around it was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the cold night breeze. Blackwood Manor. The name itself sent shivers down their spines, whispered amongst locals with a mix of fear and morbid fascination. Stories of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena had turned the manor into a legend, a place where only the brave or the foolish dared to tread.
This is insane, Alex. We shouldn't be here. The stories alone should have been enough to keep us away.
This is insane, Alex. We shouldn't be here. The stories alone should have been enough to keep us away.
Relax, babe. It's just an old house. Besides, we've got Mike. He's the best in the business when it comes to this stuff.
Right, let's get started, shall we? Lots to investigate. We need to cover as much ground as possible before dawn.
Mike, their paranormal expert, was already fiddling with his EMF reader, his face a mask of professional detachment. He had done this countless times before, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about Blackwood Manor. He jiggled the handle of the old wooden door. It was locked, of course. The wood felt cold and unyielding under his touch. Suddenly, the door creaked open, as if pulled inward by an unseen hand. The sound echoed through the empty halls, sending a chill down their spines. A gust of stale, frigid air washed over them, carrying with it the faint scent of decay and something else. Something indescribable, but deeply unsettling. It was as if the house itself was breathing, exhaling its ancient secrets. Alex, ignoring the prickle of unease crawling up his spine, smiled. This was going to be good. He could feel the adrenaline starting to pump through his veins. Alex, ever the professional, immediately raised his camera, capturing the slow, eerie reveal of the manor's interior. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight that filtered through cracks in the boarded-up windows. Cobwebs draped the grand staircase like macabre decorations, and the air hung heavy with the silence of decades.
It's freezing in here.
Residual energy. This place is saturated with it.
He pointed his EMF reader towards a dark corner, its lights flickering erratically. As they ventured deeper into the house, the floorboards groaned beneath their feet, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the oppressive silence. The only source of light came from Alex's camera, its beam cutting through the darkness, revealing glimpses of forgotten grandeur and decay. A sudden crash from upstairs shattered the silence, sending a jolt of fear through Lisa, who was already on edge.
What was that? Did you hear it too?
Stay here. Keep filming. We need to document everything.
He handed Lisa the camera, his hands trembling slightly. He and Mike crept towards the source of the sound, a room at the end of the hallway, its door slightly ajar, beckoning them. A low, guttural growl seemed to emanate from within, sending shivers down their spines and making them hesitate. Alex pushed the door open, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The room was pitch black, the air thick with a palpable sense of dread and unease. He flicked on his flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. The beam illuminated a dusty old portrait hanging on the far wall, casting eerie shadows. It depicted a family, their faces pale and gaunt, their eyes hollow and haunting, as if they were staring right through you. But what truly chilled them to the bone was the message scrawled across the canvas in what appeared to be dried blood: "Beware the darkness within." As they stared at the portrait, the temperature in the room plummeted, and the air grew thick and suffocating, making it hard to breathe. A cold, unseen hand brushed against Lisa's neck, and she let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the house. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging them into absolute darkness, leaving them in complete terror.
Alex, Mike, where are you? Please answer me. Panic seized me. I was alone in the suffocating darkness, the camera shaking in my hand. I could hear my own ragged breathing, the frantic thumping of my heart.
Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the darkness. It was Alex!
Alex! Alex!
Lisa screamed back, her voice choked with terror. She stumbled through the darkness, her hands outstretched, desperate to find him. Then, just as abruptly as it had started, the screaming stopped. An unnerving silence descended once more. But something was different. Lisa could feel a presence nearby, something cold and menacing lurking just beyond her field of vision.
Mike, is that you?
Her voice was a desperate whisper, her eyes straining to pierce the oppressive darkness. A low chuckle echoed around her, sending chills down her spine. It wasn't Mike. A single flickering candle illuminated the room, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Lisa gasped as she saw Mike standing before her, his back to her, his posture rigid and unnatural.
Mike, are you all right?
She took a hesitant step towards him, her voice trembling with a mixture of relief and apprehension. He slowly turned, and Lisa's blood ran cold. His eyes, once warm and friendly, now burned with an eerie, malevolent light. His features were contorted in a grotesque parody of a smile, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth.
Mike?
Lisa whispered, her voice catching in her throat. This was not the Mike she knew. A guttural growl escaped his lips, and he lunged at her, his hands outstretched, his fingers morphing into long, sharp claws. Lisa screamed, dropping the camera as she scrambled back, barely avoiding his grasp. Lisa scrambled back, tripping over a fallen piece of furniture. She could feel the cold, hard floor beneath her, a stark contrast to the warmth of her home. She lay there, her heart pounding against her ribs, as the creature that was once Mike advanced on her. The air was thick with tension, every second stretching into an eternity. Its eyes, burning with an unholy light, held her captive in their gaze. She felt a chill run down her spine, paralyzing her with fear.
Alex! She gasped, her voice barely a whisper, hoping against hope that he could save her.
She screamed, her voice raw with terror. The sound echoed through the empty halls, a desperate plea for help. But Alex was nowhere to be found. The silence that followed was deafening, amplifying her sense of isolation. She was alone, trapped in the heart of the cursed house with a monster that had once been their friend. The walls seemed to close in on her, suffocating her with dread. The creature lunged again, its claws slashing down towards her. She could see the malice in its eyes, a twisted reflection of the friend she once knew. Lisa closed her eyes, bracing for the worst. Her mind raced with memories of happier times, a stark contrast to the nightmare she was living. But the blow never came. She opened her eyes cautiously, her breath hitching in her throat. She opened her eyes to see the creature frozen, its attention seemingly drawn to something behind her. It was as if time itself had stopped. It let out a deafening roar, a primal sound filled with rage and something else. Fear. The sound reverberated through the house, shaking its very foundations. Slowly, Lisa turned to see what had captured the creature's attention. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat a drum of suspense. The room was still dark, but in the faint moonlight filtering through the boarded-up window, she could just make out a figure standing in the doorway. The silhouette was both familiar and foreign, a beacon of hope in the darkness. The figure was tall and slender, shrouded in shadows. It moved with an eerie grace, almost gliding through the darkness. Its face was obscured by the darkness, but Lisa could sense its gaze fixed upon her, filled with an icy malice that chilled her to the bone. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each beat echoing in the silent room. The creature that had been Mike whimpered, backing away from the figure as if from a searing flame. His eyes were wide with terror, reflecting the dim light that barely penetrated the room. It cowered on the ground, its malevolence replaced by abject terror. The transformation was complete. Fear had consumed it entirely. The figure took a step into the room, and Lisa felt a wave of despair wash over her. This was no rescuer. This was a harbinger of doom, a presence that brought only dread. This was something far more sinister. Then, silence. The air grew thick with tension, every second stretching into an eternity. The figure remained motionless, its features still obscured by the shadows. It was as if time itself had stopped, leaving only the oppressive darkness. Lisa lay paralyzed by fear, her eyes darting between the creature and the shadowy figure. What was happening? Her mind raced, searching for an escape that seemed impossible. The next morning, the house stood silent, bathed in the pale light of dawn. The horrors of the night seemed almost unreal in the soft morning glow. The only sound was the chirping of birds, oblivious to the horrors that had unfolded within. Nature continued its cycle, indifferent to human suffering. Inside, the camera lay on the floor, its lens cracked but still recording. It had captured everything, a silent witness to the terror. A faint, desperate whisper emerged from the speaker. It was barely audible, but the desperation in the voice was unmistakable.
"Help me, please!" The voice trembled, filled with a fear that was palpable even through the faint whisper.
It was Alex's voice, filled with terror and despair, then only silence. The house returned to its eerie stillness as if nothing had happened.